All right, guys, can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Wonderful, thank you. So good morning, good evening, good afternoon, guys, wherever you are. Welcome to the webinar Friday lessons and launch Agile Metrics, how to track performance in Agile. Thank you very much for asking me about this topic because we always want to provide the information which is the most valuable for people who come and joining us. And my name is Aina Life. If you see me the first time, I'm an Agile coach and founder of a boutique company, Be Agile. What I do, I contact large enterprises and also provide some courses outside of my contracting, such as leadership and agile training, such as Scrum Master training, product owner training, and also soft skills training. That's what I do, and I see my partner Dhanesh is here. So welcome, Dhanesh, and please tell us a few words about yourself.
Thank you, Aina, for the warm welcome, and thank you everyone for joining us in for today's conversation on your Friday afternoon, lunchtime for some, and maybe some are joining from different time zones. So certainly we are having a global audience here. In terms of me coming through on this, basically I'm also a colleague of Aina, and we've been working together for quite some time in our current gig, while I've been on agile transformation for large enterprises for over a decade now, and been working with the different level of stakeholders, executives, non-executives, and being there to go through the pains of the transformations, measuring it, and what should we not do, what should we do, all those types of things. So we'll be happy to chat with you more as we move along in today's presentation, as well as whatever Q&A session we may have, and we would certainly be hoping to have a more interactive session, more conversational. We don't want it to be a more teachy preachy kind of thing. Like, we want to really get into the real world things and what you are facing and how we can help you overcome those, and how we can help you find a different way out of doing those things that are required to be done as part of your day-to-day work.
Thank you, Dhanesh. And let's move on to the agenda of today. So first, we're going to talk about what metrics are and why they are important. Then we broke down into four main parts, like agile productivity metrics, such as lead time, cycle time, burnout, burn up, and cumulative flow diagram. Then we will move on to agile quality metrics, such as escape defects and test automation coverage. Then we will talk about agile health metrics, such as team satisfaction score and agile maturity index, and also agile value metrics, such as business value delivered, time to market, and net promoter score. And then we will finish today with why agile teams struggle with measurements, and definitely a Q&A, which we're going to be the main part. And guys, if you feel like you have questions, and we know some of you need to drop earlier, feel free to raise your hand or start speaking. We have just 30 people, so it's quite a cozy room, or just type them on the chat. Myself or Dhanesh are going to monitor the chat, and we will be very happy to pick up your question and answer as soon as possible. So let's move on to what metrics are, and we decided to pick the easiest explanation as possible. So metrics are basically a method of measuring something or the results obtained from this. And this metric is defined by Google, so let's use it for this presentation. And here you also see like the example of agile metrics, such as like features versus bugs, or like spending time through stages or sprint events. What we can measure is what is the impact of returns, how much work started and get completed, how much collaboration has there been, or we can create our own metrics. Depends on what we need for our organization and for our team. So types of common agile metrics are like Kanban metrics, Scrum metrics, and Lean metrics. And I hope everybody here knows what agile is, what Scrum is, and like Kanban is. So we won't spend time here. If you don't, you can Google meanwhile or watch our previous lectures regarding on what agile is or Scrum versus Kanban. They are uploaded on the YouTube channel already. But let's come back to the metrics. So Kanban metrics are metrics which are primarily focused on measuring invested time, like cycle time, delivered results, and their ratio. Scrum metrics basically are centered around planning, understanding the workflow, and demonstrating the amount of work completed during a given period. And Lean metrics based on a manufacturer experience, concerned with continuously measuring production efficiency and product quality with technical assessment by testing features, checking for possible errors, and foreseeing negative effects. So this is like one type of common metrics, and it will be probably more understandable for you if you are on the technical side. But if you are just joined to know what the agile metrics are about in general, this slide probably will be more understanding for you. So we can break down the types based on productivity. So how productive the team is at delivering software features to production, which basically means speed, the quality, how well the product works against expectations, if the product is built right, the value, how well the product supports the business goals, the right product is built and provides the expected return on investment or even better, and the team metrics, so how happy the team is. And for some of you, it might be concerned, why are we measuring the team happiness? Why we even care about the team? So yeah, in old times, not many employers cared about the team. They were mainly focused on the end result. But the work was also basically manual, which was easy to replace. But now we are maturing as humanity, as individuals, and also work becomes more and more creative. So people need to be happy to embrace creativity and unleash the spirit of doing something great for the company and for humanity. That's why team happiness is also one of the most important metrics. And I will stop here. Dhanesh, do you have anything to add? Or guys, do you have any questions so far?
Yeah, thanks, Anna. Yeah, so one thing which I would like to call out here is like, though we are talking about metrics, and it's just very easy to get lost in number of metrics that could be done. And the value in doing metrics is in not doing anything and everything under the sun as a metric, but finding out and weeding out vanity metric versus the value metric. So that's has to be the focus. And each of these categories could have vanity metrics versus value metrics. So how those are different. So quick insight on that is like, if any metric is making you feel good about something, more often than not, that's just a vanity metric. If a metric is giving you an insight into, take that metric into consideration and put some action around it. If you can take some actions on it, if you can have data-driven decisions being done based on those metrics, those are the value metrics. So we have to really be careful that we choose the value metrics and we choose the indicators that are going to be leading. Yeah, it's not like lagging indicators are not required, but both are required. But our value and focus has to be more on value metric and leading indicators than on the feel good factors of vanity metric and lagging indicators.
Great.
Yeah, so,
yeah, Tom?
so if I may, Dhanesh, I think that was a good thing. I was going to ask about that, right? But are there any examples? For example, let's use this happiness, right? Which is kind of literally very touchy feely. But is there any particular thing you want to measure in that which is more value than just vanity? And again, I'm just picking that because team happiness is also very vague, right? So is there anything specific you could recommend in that particular category, for example?
Yes, absolutely. How you slice and dice the data collection on those, like if you simply ask, like, okay, how are you feeling? Like that's simply an example of how do you feel about it. Nobody is going to come and say, oh, I'm feeling frustrated, I'm feeling sad about it. But the way you collect that metric, the way you slice and dice those, the way you, if you say, okay, do we have the clarity about the role and our day-to-day activities? Do we understand what our product vision is? Do we understand how are we powering the vision of our organizations? And when we put together all of those together as a package, the result you get out of it is eye opener.
Thank you.
So
Thank
how you do it will also result in metric becoming a vanity versus a value.
Thank you.
Yeah, and a great point, because from my experience, I didn't appreciate the team happiness and everything else related like to team health or like to the team like as a metric at all, because I am quite a feeling person, empathetic person. So I was frustrated even like talking about this, like, because how can you measure feeling? Like as a Scrum Master, I know what is happening with my team. I know like the pulse of my team, like let's say this way. But if we start measuring something, wouldn't we like be suffocated by metrics, especially regarding like the team when we basically measure feeling? But what Dhanesh addressed, and then I switched my mind, like, yes, we can have our like intuition and spiritual connection to the team, but it depends how we slice and dice and what we actually measure and where we want to get. So if we have like a North Star about even like the team happiness, the team health, or like the organizational health, definitely we can't measure everything. We can't measure like individual feelings, but we can measure like the feeling overall of the ship we are driving to the North Star.
Absolutely. The more we weed out or eliminate the subjectivity from our data collection and make it more objective, it becomes more valuable and helps us making data-driven decisions. And I see Pradipta has asked a wonderful question there. And her question is, I believe it's her, Pradipta. I'm just assuming based on the name. So,
No, it's
oh,
a
sorry.
A. Yeah, in
Okay.
Bengali we always end with the A.
Okay. My bad. Sorry about that, Pradipta. Yeah. So your question is fantastic question. Agile is based on empiricism. Then how we can quantify the progress? Well, this is exactly what empirical. When you are empirical, is you are seeing things as they are happening and you are learning from it. You are basically uh, where looking at the things how they are going and how things go on, and so your metrics collection in agile or empiricism is not based on when things are done, but rather this how the process is moving, how things are going on. It could be done on a bi-weekly basis, it could be done on a monthly basis, but it has to be on an ongoing basis. It's not something that you do it once and done. It is an ongoing process to to basically inspect and adapt based on the empirical evidences you collect from doing things in certain way. I hope that gets you some clarity, Pradipta.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
Cool.
And thank you for the question and nice meeting you. But let's move on to why Agile Metrics important. And I already started talking about the team happiness, because we need to know like how good we are leading our ship to the North Star. But the other improvements we can see by using the right metrics, and I emphasize the right metrics, not vanity metrics, are identified bottlenecks, managing product backlog, managing work in progress, optimized technical debt, improved time to market, keeping teams and stakeholders aligned on the project and its goals, increased transparency, data-driven decision-making, early identification of potential problems. That's a few. We can pick many more, but we have limits of time. So let's also spend a few minutes on questions metrics help to answer. And I will just read a few, and then you will receive slides so you can study it later. So for example, if we are doing project tracking, like are you meeting commitments, or what is your like current pace? And I know we are talking about metrics in Agile, but still some organizations are going like hybrid between project management and agile. So sometimes, unfortunately, Scrum Master still needs to have some project tracking and in between, like the transition, or like deployment tools. How fast can you get changes to your consumers? Or application monitoring, like for example, how well is the system performing? And some like more related to source control or like application monitoring questions, like how good are the team's requirements? Are you making the system better? Are you delivering the right things? So all of these questions we need to answer while we are driving our products to market or our projects. And that's why we use metrics. Otherwise, we would never know like where we were, like for example, a few months ago, and where we are right now, and what's more important, what we need to improve. And let's move on to.
So just to add context, Aina, there that we have kept these in a more agnostic way to ask those questions. It's not agile or waterfall specific. The purpose of this is because audience is going to be varied and not everybody is in truly agile fashion working. And moreover, even when organizations are saying that they are agile, they are probably in halfway somewhere. They are pseudo agile or pronto agile, basically not actually fully agile. So that's why we want to make sure that everybody understands how this whole SDLC and those questions that are being asked could be answered using vanity metric, value metric, being more empirical about it, everything. So how you do it is going to be another important aspect. What is one thing, what you need to do, then how you are going to be doing it is also defines what the outcome is going to be.
Yeah, thank you, Dhanesh. And even like in some organizations, there are some business units which are already mobilized. They are agile. Other business units are kind of like want to be agile, but they're not mobilized and they're still running in waterfall. So people are like in between. So that's why we tried to accommodate as many tastes as we could. So let's move on to.
Wait, Aina, there is another question by Pradipta and another wonderful question. So he's asking very good questions here. So the question is, for measuring the team happiness, do we need to consider 5 stages of forming, norming, storming? Yes, we certainly need to understand Tuckman's model and see the teams that are persistent will tend to work well together, collaborate together, because they will create that understanding. And we have a specific topic on that about team churn and all. We will get in there. But to answer this question right in moment of time, yes, if you keep the team together, things will go up and things will look better. If you keep changing, swapping, chopping teams, it will never be getting to a performing state. You will always be resetting back yourself to storming or norming or whatever, right? So you cannot really be maturing as a team together. And if you're not getting matured as a team, your happiness is suddenly going out of the window.
And I see a comment from Ankur. I believe if we look at WTA of the team with the different angles and how soon it is updated can also tell the team happiness.
Yeah, would you like to elaborate WTA, Ankur?
Yes, it is the working team agreement.
Okay. You are referring to team agreements here. Okay, yes, absolutely, yes. So see, team agreements, yeah, that's a fantastic point. Like that is part of your when you are putting together your team, you're forming your team, you're storming, norming, and performing. So as part of your forming state itself, you start working on your team agreements, your collective agreements to work together, and that also needs to evolve as you reach to the different maturity states. One of the biggest anti-pattern of this we have seen empirically. Again, I will use that word because that's why the fantastic inclusion by Pradipta earlier is teams do it and then forget about it. They don't come back and revisit it, and they tend to forget and they get to their own comfort zones and then tend to forget about things. So as Scrum Masters, as coaches, as product owners, as project managers in agile organizations, whatever your designation or role is, The intent has to be bringing them collectively together, finding ways to work together better, having those agreements honored, keeping each other honest, keeping each other accountable is the key to happiness.
Yeah, I love this comment, Dhanesh, and I love the comment from Ankur. And I want to add from my side, if you are a new Scrum Master or new project manager, if you still not transit, so as soon as you do the working team agreement, as better it is like for your own happiness and for your team happiness, because the situation like can be different. Like, for example, there was a Scrum Master before you who was fantastic, but he or she did like something beyond their role. And the team is used to that and they expect you to do the same. But you have your like different work style, and maybe you even like don't know that the team expect you to do something because the previous person did it like beyond the role, or there were expectations from leaders which like he or she had to pick up. But for the team, it's like they used to have this person before, so they want another person like just to replace the previous person, which is impossible. So as soon as you set up a meeting talking about the expectations from your role, like from yourself, and how you can serve the team best and agree with the team, as better it is like for your own happiness, and just smoother you will go through the stages like forming, storming, norming, and finally performing. And then like through the cycle, you can do like retrospective and to get the feedback during the team retrospective and then adjust your working team agreement.
Okay, there is another wonderful question from Alex about the cognitive load. And I would just go back to one single metric that could help us getting this analyzed and take data-driven decision-making done is work in progress. The moment you understand your capacity, what you can do, and you work accordingly across all the work you have to do, because one of the things that happen, a lot of the work that is being done by the team does not get represented on either on their board or they are not tracking it. Hence, they really don't understand what all is going on and how their time is going into different buckets. So first and foremost is whatever you are working upon has to be represented in one way or shape or form, whether it is a story, whether it is a task, whether it is a enabler, everything should be there. And that should define true work in progress. And the moment we understand the limits of work in progress, that really helps in getting teams' cognitive load managed in a way that team will feel happy about it and it will become more sustainable. So the whole idea of agile and or going agile was, is, and will always be getting to a sustainable pace. So sustainable pace is the key word here, and that goes back to the metric of work in progress, goes back to your understanding of cognitive load and impact on the team happiness. Alex, I hope that brings the clarity there. All right, you can
yes, yes, it is. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, let's continue, Aina.
Yeah, let's continue, and let's continue to the productivity metric, which is the first one is the lead time, which measures the total time takes to complete a user story or like a work itself if you don't use user story. So starting from when the task is created, when the work enters the product backlog until it finished and released. And I see that it's a bit wrong picture. So it's from task started to the work completed. So that's what we call the lead time. And we also have cycle time, which focus on evaluating the duration, so which is basically from work started, not when the work created, but when we actually start working on something and until the work is completed. So these are two metrics which are going.
So one simple definition that we can use for lead time, cycle time is basically lead time is the time from where your ideation begins and realization ends. So that is all is lead time, and your lead time would be combination of wait times which is your basically the in lean words, it is basically the wastage or bottlenecks that is happening, and your working time, which is basically your cycle time once we actually start working on it. And this directly impacts your value metric time to market. The better your process of delivering things is, the better it becomes for your value metric of time to market.
Yeah, and I can.
So Dhanesh, this is
sorry.
Tom. Quick question. Go ahead, Anna.
Yeah, so a quick example, guys, you've been asking me about the Discord group or like Telegram group after the sessions, and also about the podcasts. And I got the idea of doing that, but I didn't start my work. So my lead time already started on these items and these ideas from yours, but it's not cycle time yet.
Yeah, so I think what I was going to ask is the goal of this measurement to reduce the lead time or reduce the cycle time? Is that the goal when you're measuring this, or it is just to know what the lead time or cycle time is? What is the goal of this metric? Is that a goal?
Oh, certainly there is goal. So when you plot this lead time and cycle time, you get to understand how you are currently working, where are your bottlenecks. As you were talking about why Agile metrics are important, identifying the bottlenecks and what we can do about it. There are certain bottlenecks you can do nothing about it. So focusing on them is a waste of time for collective, for everyone. But there are certain things that we can act upon, and we can improve those lead time and cycle times both collectively. So that's where the value comes in. And it also helps you getting to better draw of your understanding of your work types, basically what type of work is taking what kind of time, how you can also become more predictable. So like it leads to your predictability. Also, there is so much you can do if you do your metrics right.
Okay.
And I can actually probably spend whole hour on just talking about lead time, cycle time, and the benefits and how you can do different things, because this is certainly has so much potential to be utilized in the right way to bring so much to the teams for their value, for the organizational value, and combining it with your WIP or work in progress limits, it works wonders for the team.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. See the wonderful comments on this from Jayan Dan. I hope I pronounced the name correctly. The ultimate goal being serving our customers faster, definitely, and understanding these metrics will help us how we can reduce them in order to deliver faster. And I see a question from Bogdan. Agile productivity metrics, measuring how our Agile is productive to deliver values frequently, or measuring how are we successful to implement Agile way of work. And comment from Moritz, internet is quite laggy. Well, it might be my side. Would you?
I think it might be on your side, not sure if anyone else is having any problem. Would you combine story point estimates with lead cycle time for analysis? Oh, well, okay. That's basically like opening a Pandora's box here, Moritz, right? Story point itself is going to be a topic of conversation if you really ask me. How you story point? Does your story points really reflect what it is expected to reflect, which is your combination of your effort, uncertainty, and there is third element, effort, uncertainty, and risk involved in doing that, right? So complexity. Yeah, thank you, Kofo. Yeah, so if are those really done? Do you really use normalized story points, which could be used across your spectrum of organization? Are your story points more specific to your team? So all those questions needs to be answered if you are going to be looking into taking into consideration the story points. But within your team's context, definitely, yes, you can use story points along with lead cycle time for analysis. Absolutely. within one team context. Like this is you might see in our deck, we will not be talking about velocity. We are purposely omitting that because that's a very controversial topic, and it becomes a true vanity metric for organizations because they try to start comparing it, because this is not for comparisons. This is for teams' internal understanding and improvements based on the data they are getting for themselves.
And coming to Bogdan's question, so are we measuring how our Agile is productive to deliver values frequently, or measuring how are we successful to implement Agile ways of work? It's actually both. We need to know how productive we are to deliver, but we also need to make sure that we are successful in implementing Agile way of work. Okay, I think we can move on. I don't see any questions or any hands.
Yeah, so far I think we have.
Okay, so burn down and burn up charts. So burn down charts measures. Burn down chart measures how much work is remaining on a project. So if you see on the chart, it always decreases towards zero, and ideally it gets like to the zero at the end of the project. And burn up chart is like shows how much work has been completed. So they are like very similar metrics, but burn down shows how much work is remaining, and burn up how much work has been completed, and so it's supposed to raise up by the end of the sprint. My personal preference is burn down, but it's up to you which one it's like relates better to you, how much work has been completed or how much work is remaining. And the final metric we wanted to show is the cumulative flow diagram, which is a bit more sophisticated version of burn down and burn up. So if you are new to Agile and new to the metrics, I would recommend to start with these two first. Then when you get used a little bit, you can move on to cumulative flow diagram, which gives you a bigger picture on the stability of your project workflow, on your work in progress, cycle time, throughput. So you see like work in progress here on the yellow side, approximate average cycle time, average throughput, like what is done, what is to do. Dhanesh, do you have anything before we jump on to Ankur?
No, I think unless there is any specific question from, because this is more to understand things right from one view. So CFD is certainly one of the advanced way of looking at things, and you have to really analyze it and you have to understand it better. You can do these things individually also. So reading CFD is not straightforward, but once you get to practice it, that's where you understand. So you have to understand these peaks and valleys and these how parallel or expanding or basically they are coming together. So you have to understand all those, whether it is becoming narrow, becoming a bottleneck, or so all those things could be really translated from CFD, and we can do even individually through understanding of the different metrics.
Ankur, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, so there is a slight catch when we do burn down and burn up. So burn down is basically confined to when we are talking about sprint, and burn up is usually conveying more meaning when we are talking about the release. The reason is the scope of a sprint is usually fixed. So when we are doing a comparison with the scope is not changing. But when we are talking about a release, the product backlog is changing. So that way, whatever we have completed, when we compare with the scope, then we are getting more direction, because if the scope might have also increased. So we are making an achievement on the progress made, but with respect to the total work, because the total work has changed now when we are talking about product backlog or release. So that way we can definitely use burn up.
Yeah, it's a great comment. Thank you for jumping up.
That's a good context to share, Ankur. Thank you. And this is exactly what we are looking to have more conversation.
Yeah. So if anyone else have any other valuable comments, please feel free to jump in, like Ankur, Tom, and a few others already did. So yeah, let's keep looking at cumulative flow, and we see like work in progress, which we can see on the diagram, which refers to number of items or tasks that are actively being worked on at any given time. And I noticed that many teams new to Agile, even like Scrum Masters, are afraid of a work in progress. Like every time I suggested, people are rejective a little bit because they are afraid that we don't know how much time we're going to spend on each story. But it's not about time, it's about the amount of stories itself. So I am not really organized myself, so I need discipline to keep being organized. And I like starting things and don't like finishing. So in my personal project, I might find myself working on like 10 items simultaneously. And then I don't remember like where I started and what I need to do next, just like switching from one task to another. And we can find it with team members as well when there are like too many stories like started on their plate, and we see like we don't have much progress to the done. So one of the reasons why this is happening, it might be that people have too many stories started and working on ideas simultaneously. And yes, Bogdan, stop starting, start finishing. That's what work in progress is about. So we can limit ourselves, for example, to 3 stories to start and don't start anything else, and unless at least one story will be finished. So that's what work in progress is about, not about the time spent on the story, but on the amount of the stories you are working simultaneously. So throughput refers to the amount of work completed by a team during a specific period of time. Usually we use sprint or an iteration to measure this. Cycle time, we already spoke about it. Amount of tasks in the backlog, approved work, we also might look at this if we want. Buffer task, which is all work that is waiting for approval, is defined to be in buffer zone. And work in progress, so we need to evaluate the current workload. I'm stopping here, Dhanesh or anyone else.
Yeah, one thing you kind of touched upon, Aina, is basically a multitasking, which is one of the most misused word in corporate world, professional world. And honestly, the moment you try to do multitasking, you are putting cost in every switch you are making, and that switch cost is going to be costlier than you when you focus and deliver things and value faster, right? So it's like you can probably, I'm not saying that you can always do only just one task always. No, probably you can have more than one, but how much is enough has to be understood. It's like juggling the balls. You can start with one ball, then you can add another one. You will be able to probably handle. You can add another one. You can probably handle. Can you add more and still juggle? Can you add more, still juggle? No. So there is a limit that has to be there even for multitasking, and people really do not understand that. And like people want to switch context 5 times a day. That impedes their progress on each 5 of the activities, unless those are blocked. So if things are blocked for something, that is understood. But if things are not blocked, you should focus on, and Bodan has used what is one of my favorite phrase lines, is stop starting, start finishing. So that sums it up basically.
Yeah, and some people get creative, and sorry, Tom, just a comment, and even given me the example of Leonardo da Vinci, who had like 10 or more things in progress, but Da Vinci, it took him like 10 years or more sometimes to finish one project. But unfortunately, we are working here, so your customers won't wait for you for 10 years. So stop starting and start finishing really works in our context. Please don't.
Yeah, unless Aina, you're building a masterpiece, then people might wait.
Yeah.
No, so a couple of questions. So, so this charts, right? Frequency of updates. Are these being updated on a daily basis, or are these on a weekly basis, or whenever you meet? What is the frequency of this updates? Is there a set frequency?
You mean
So
for
for example, tasks in backlog, like you may groom some things and that comes into backlog, for example, right? So throughput, like, do you have these metrics updated on a daily basis and these charts change every day? Is that how it is? Or some pieces may be weekly, some pieces may be daily. Do we have any guidance on that?
So if we use Jira and Jira tracks metrics,
Okay.
it changes right
will,
after
okay.
you move the story.
The output. Okay, got it. Okay, that makes sense. And coming back to the context switching, just a comment there, and I think that was a good comment you made there. But the point is, to us sitting on this phone and talking, looks like the concept of context switching is pretty clear, right? That you move, change context, it takes time. But why is it such a big? I mean, it may be a rhetoric question, right? There's no answer. Why is it that when people work in the real work environment, they don't, like, even though it's so simple, why don't they comprehend it and they insist it has to be different? Any thought? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I got it. I think it was like a culture, like a few years ago, it was a culture of multitasking. So people assumed it's good that you are like, again, some creative people bring like Julius Caesar right away, like Caesar could write and listen simultaneously without any harm. So to be a better employee, you also need to develop the skill, and people truly believed that they deliver and that they actually like build the skill. And it was a culture for like few years that it's possible, but then there were like many researches like in different countries which proved like actually human brain is not meant to multitask, and then research kept like showing more and more like harmful thing. But unfortunately some leaders still believe in multitasking and encourage that, and employers keep like following the culture. So I believe it's just like will take another few years for the cultural change. And if Dhanesh and anyone else has any other idea, feel free to unmute.
And that's a profound question. Thanks, guys.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on to the quality metrics then.
And let's move quickly. We are left with only 13 minutes, Aina.
Oh, yeah, time flies. Thank you, guys. So let's be
It's always good to have conversation and let the time fly, and we can schedule another session, because when we have conversation, that's we get the value out of it. We don't want it to be monotonous sessions where we are not allowing you to talk and not allowing you to have conversations. So we can always come back and have another session in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, and multitasking is anti-pattern for focus. Thank you, Pradipta. So quality is basically about testing, at least in our today's context. So like escape defects is one of the metrics we can use for measuring quality. So if you don't know, escaped defects are issues, defects, or bugs that are discovered after deployment is complete. So for example, if you launch a new application for iPhone and your users start using it and find out, oh, actually it's not loading, or like it shows a different nickname. So these are like some defects we find after the deployment is complete. So like the point is to reduce the number of defects before we launch. And the defects escape rate is a measure of the quality of the product with a lower rate, indicating a high quality product. So I'll stop here because we don't have time. Any comments, questions?
I think, well, to sum it up, I can say that the primary focus of any leadership, whether it is a team leadership or program leadership or executive leadership, has to be primarily on three aspects. One, predictability. How predictable are we as a team, as a group, as an organization to deliver value? How good is the quality we are delivering. So predictability, quality, and sustainability. So how sustainable that pace is, can we really continue to deliver? And those are the hallmark of a good organization versus average organization. So those who excel on those three parameters will always be ranking in a good organization, and those who not will be in an average category. So to sum it up in a very simple manner, these three things, predictability, quality, and sustainability, are going to be the key aspects. And there could be different measures that could be done, different metrics that could be done. But if our focus is not becoming more predictable, our focus is not being a better quality product in the market, our focus is not on being sustainable about it. And when I'm talking about sustainable, it's not about environmental sustainability. Yeah, that is also an important aspect, but I'm talking sustainability is the pace to sustain what we are trying to do. And the moment we bring this together, our goals for agility, like time to market, team happiness, all gets fruitified.
Thank you, Dhanesh. So we have a few slides on how to calculate escape rate, but I will skip this because we don't have time and move on to Agile health metrics. So we started talking about it, but just to recap, so we can measure like satisfaction score, such as happiness. So if you trusted informal relationship in your team, easier to start with open dialogue with each member, what I always encourage. But again, if you just started and you didn't build the relationship yet, you can create a survey or ask everyone to rate the experience of the company from 1 to 5 and ask questions, for example, like what are the best and the worst aspects of your work here in the organization, what could be improved, what could increase your happiness. So again, if you didn't build trust yet, so you can start with something basic, what people wouldn't be scared to share, and then you start like with action items on how to improve their happiness. And then when people see that you're actually working for them, not just reporting on them, you can get to like deeper and creative questions about the happiness. Team morale is kind of similar to happiness, but still different, because happiness is more about comfort, but team morale is about productivity and like self-esteem, self-evaluation. So for team morale, some questions to think about are: did working in the company help to improve your skills? How much is your full potential explored with the current workload? Do you enjoy your work? Do you see the clear results of your work? And like, are you enthusiastic about new projects? And you might ask them to rate like the mood, like from the red unsatisfied face to like the green very happy face, and then check up what is happening with the team. And Agile Maturity Index, like one of my favorite because I'm an Agile coach. So here, this metrics measures how well the team is implementing Agile practices. You can create the criteria like based on the organizations, like level 1 entry, like visualize what different work types are visible, and like the level 5 is like risk dimensions. It's completed like in their workflow dependencies, or like other metrics to use for like limit work in progress, feedback loops, improve policies explicit, and manage flow. So you will receive this slide so you can explore more on the examples. And I see the question, are we having another session soon? Yeah, I will definitely schedule another session if there is a demand on that. Okay, any comments or questions on health metrics? Cool. So the last item on that I wanted to share is team member turnover, because it's also important to notice, despite it's more for the HR to worry about. So if team managers frequently replace team members, it means that the work environment is likely unhealthy. And yeah, specific rate of turnover over time is healthy in fact, but if you don't want to have any addiction of people for years, then it would mean a stagnation. So, however, you should watch out for sudden spikes in activity, like months when several people left on the team or many people joined, and sometimes it leads just to one toxic team member. So it's something to watch out during the process. And value metrics, so some of the examples are time to market, product quality, and business value delivered. Now, time to market is a metric measures the time it takes for a feature or product to be developed and released, deployed to the market. The product quality metric measures the quality of the product delivered to the customer, and here is where the acceptance criteria comes to the stage. And business value delivered is a metric that measures the business value delivered by the product or feature. And we also included Net Promoter Score, which is not really like Agile metrics, but again, we have mixed audience here. So you might use these metrics to know how people are satisfied with your delivery. And maybe, Dhanesh, we might use these metrics for our webinars in future and ask people to rate our lunch and learn sessions from like 0 to 10 and see how many passive feedback we have, or like how many promoters we might get after our session. Any question on?
Absolutely. I think we should institutionalize the feedback for the team, our webinars or sessions, basically lunch and learn sessions. Each session you should do this feedback loop, basically, so that we can take that feedback into consideration and improve.
Agreed. So this was like the main like meat about the metrics.
Absolutely. There is a comment from Bodan. Yes, predictability. Predictability is going to be useful from all walks of or all areas within, like how predictable your requirements are, how predictable your delivery is, how predictable is your time to market is, how predictable is your sustainable pace is. So everything, that predictability becomes the key. How predictable is overall commitment to value delivered is. Yes, absolutely. You can use it in all different walks of your organization.
Yes, thank you, Bogdan. And while Dhanesh was talking, I was showing the slides about definition of measurements and why they are important and why it's so hard to measure. We have just 3 minutes left, so I'm just showing the slides for those who are going to watch them on YouTube. And guys, you will receive the slide decks after that, so you can study these slides. And now I would like to spend the last 3 minutes for the last comments or questions. We want to bring as much value as possible.
Or maybe share some feedback.
Yeah, or maybe share some feedback to us.
Yes,
Yeah,
Bodan. You can unmute yourself.
Yeah. Hi, colleagues. I want to say that just thank you so much for this great session. Yeah, for some things we recap in our minds. Yeah, bring new ideas, etc. So thank you so much. It's really available, and hope to meet you very soon.
Most welcome, Bodan. Happy to be here and have this conversation with you all.
Yeah, thank you, Bogdan.
Yeah, no, thank you, guys. That was good.
And guys, thank you for being active on the chat and also raising your hands and asking the questions.
Thank you, Sikha. Thank you, Kofo. Yeah.
Yeah. The only comment, Dhanesh, on a lighter note, you know, the NP Net Promoter Score is good unless you're giving lunch.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right, definitely. It would be better to have lunch as well, not just work. So far, just provided.
All right. Thank you all for joining us today, and have a wonderful rest of the day and the weekend ahead.
Thank you. Bye.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.
I'm looking forward to see all of you in our next webinars, next lunch and learns, and definitely we will have a second part for this. And if you have any,
we will call them BYOL. Bring your own lunch sessions.
There you go.
Let's improvise ourselves. Tom, thank you for your asking that question. I think that gives us idea. Okay, bring your own lunch sessions. All right.
Guys.
Thank you, guys.
Any other ideas for our sessions, please feel free to message me, because this is like an idea of Agile Metrics. This was very valuable.